Hi, I'm Dan Schinder.
And I'm Steven Schinder.
And you're watching Yesshift, or listening to it.
Right, yeah, father-son podcast. He's the dad, I'm the son. And we have another guest on our podcast. It's from the band Lobate Scarp. It is Adam Sears. And I gotta say, that's a great shirt you have there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. I gotta mention, you have a great shirt as well.
Oh, yeah.
My coffee cup.
Oh, wow, I feel so left out.
This is actually what my desk thing is.
There you go. There you go.
It's a Mandalorian with Grogu.
I've been following your Facebook posts about the Mandalorian season 2.5.
Yeah.
This is the way.
Exactly, this is the way.
So let's start with that. Adam, you're a Star Wars Mandalorian universe fan?
Absolutely, yeah. My girlfriend is probably more of a Star Wars fan than I am. So I was a pretty big Star Wars fan at the beginning, but she actually got me really into Star Wars. And
oh, that's great.
Yeah, so now I'm probably way more of a fan than I would have ever been had I not met her.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, we're a huge Star Wars family. Yeah. Me, my wife, Steve, my other son Alex, her son Kavan, a couple of the girls. Huge Star Wars family, and my wife has a crush on Grogu. She's got Grogu shirt, Grogu pajama, Grogu knit hat, scarf, lunchbox, beach towel, umbrella, everything.
Oh my god, I got a crush on Grogu. I mean, come
on. Cool. So I have to ask, first question before we dig into the history of the band. We'll talk about history, influences. We'll talk about what's happening now, what's coming up in the future, but first question is actually sparked by when I told my wife yesterday. I said, yeah, Steve and I are having another guest on. We're real excited. It's Adam Sears from the band Lobate Scarp. And the connection is with John Davison and Billy Sherwood, because she knows what our show is. She says, what the hell is a Lobate Scarp? So, who don't know, what is that? To me, it sounds like some sort of prehistoric ocean creature or something.
That's cool.
What is it really?
It's a geographical formation that have basically, it's like almost like an astronomy term. You'll find them on different planets. You'll find them on Mercury. You'll find them on the moon.
Like spires?
What's that?
Like the spires that develop?
Yeah, so scarps are short for, the word scarp is short for escarpment. So it's basically like a ridge. So when the tectonic plates, we were talking about earthquakes earlier before you recorded.
Yeah.
But when the tectonic plates are like rubbing together, the ridges start to form like sort of these really narrow mountains. And on Mercury, supposedly they go for like 200 miles in length, I used to be in another band. I used to be in an a cappella rock band. Probably about 20 years ago or more, and we had just a day off. We were in Washington D.C., and we went to the Aerospace Museum, and there was a wall of astronauts from different quotes of different astronauts saying different things, and I don't know who it was, but I saw on the wall, "I'm observing lobate scarps on the planet Mercury," something like that. And I was like, I turned my bandmate and like, I don't know what that means, but that's the name of my next band. Because it was like kind of mysterious to me. I had no idea. And then later on in the hotel room, I looked it up and I was like, okay, so lobate means lobe shaped. And then scarp, like I said, is short for escarpments. So it has that kind of, and in my mind back then, I wanted to have like, I'm a spacey prog rock band. I had some of that music in mind, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. This works out so good. And then the escarpments, they kind of go up and down. And so that kind of like, it's kind of like a metaphor for the music and for the dynamics of the music and
the sound wave even.
Exactly. Yeah. Sound waves. And so it kind of worked out really well.
That's cool. I love that you decided that was going to be your next band's name before you knew what it was. Thank goodness it was Latin for something like infectious genital itch or something like that.
Yeah. A lot of people ask me if it's Latin for anything. And I'm like,
yeah, but then again, you could put out a CD with a scratch and sniff sleeve if it was that. So
that's true. Well, actually, on our first on this our first album, Time and Space.
Yeah.
If you go in it, let's see, there's a little. So So
if you go to a specific page, it'll teleport you through time and space.
Exactly. So here, there's like a little, I don't know if you could see it, but there's a little description of what a Lobate Scarp is right there. So people could turn to the page and find out. Cool. It's kind of like it's like a school book almost, like you kind of learn about this stuff.
Yeah, it looks like moon craters from here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what, there's moon craters, and then there's like a line. You see that the line with the arrows. So that's a Lobate Scarp.
I gotta send you some
birds
pictures of the area where I live. I actually recently, last Tuesday, was driving home from Phoenix. I live in the mountains, 100 miles east of Phoenix, and there's this amazing escarpment that is very, very fiercely rigid, like a monster clawed 1,000 feet on this rock cliff, and it's a good, probably half a mile wide or something. It's actually called Apache Leap for not the best reasons. Okay. But it's a really neat, enchanting area. I'll send you that stuff.
Oh yeah, please do. Yeah, so there you go. There's a scarp right in your backyard.
Yeah. Let's talk about influences. It's no surprise that your influences include Genesis, Rush, Queen, Tears for Fears. I was a little surprised by, and I'll kind of get to that. 80s pop and musical theater. Oh yeah. So Steve and I want to ask you a little bit about influences, and the reason I say that about Tears for Fears is I was not, so when Tears for Fears first came out, I was a prog snob. I was in a prog band that, we refused to play anything that you could dance to without hurting yourself or you know what I mean? One of those things. We were a cross between Frank Zappa, Gentle Giant, and Kansas, I guess.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And
definitely I'd be into that.
Yeah, the whole skinny tie thing just wasn't our thing. But when they came out with Sowing the Seeds of Love, and I heard Olita Adams on that album, it just blew my mind, and I became an instant hardcore fan. So they're kind of like my guilty pleasure in a way, although there's really nothing to feel guilty about.
Exactly. That's wonderful music.
It really is. It is. My head was just somewhere else at the time,
Yeah, right.
But these are really great influences. Steve, I know, has a couple specific questions regarding you want to start with that, Steve?
Yeah, so I was wondering, do you have a favorite Yes album? And if this might be even harder, do you have a favorite Yes song?
Yes, and yes. So my favorite Yes album is Fragile.
Oh, nice.
But my favorite Yes song is Close to the Edge.
Interesting.
So yeah, as far as like Fragile, I think from beginning to end, I've just heard that probably over 1,000 times from beginning to end. Close to the Edge is a great album, of course. But to me, I just love the way Fragile goes. Like, just each track is completely different, and you have like those little interludes done by all the members of the bands. And
the way it unfolds was just legendary and really pushed them into a whole new space. No pun intended.
Yeah, Close to the Edge is my number one. Heart of the Sunrise is my number 2 song, and number 3 is Awaken. It's probably almost traditionally what most Yes fans have for their favorite songs, I believe. But
yeah,
in the top 5. Right.
Cool. Where in your musical/life journey were you exposed to those 2 albums, Fragile and Close to the Edge?
So I found out about Yes in a very backward sort of way.
That's the best way.
I know, exactly. I mean, I was into so in high school, I graduated in '94, and so when I was going through high school, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, all the grunge stuff was really in. Alternative rock was in. I liked some of that stuff, but then, like, to me, like, a lot of those bands came out and they started sounding very samey to me. And then my best friend Danny, he got me into Rush, and because a friend of his next door neighbor was like into Rush, and he had some Rush albums, or his parents had Rush albums, and he showed me, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And so that's kind of how I got into, like, I started going into my parents' record collection. I started getting into Moody Blues and The Who, and they had Tommy on record, and they had Jesus Christ Superstar, the concept album.
Ian Gillan.
Yeah, and I was into musicals. I mean, I've been into musicals since I was a kid, and I did with Wizard of Oz when I was 6, and I'm a musical theater major, by the way. I have a bachelor in fine arts in musical theater performance.
Nice. I think my whole life has been a musical.
Yeah, well, good. Must have been a good life then, for sure. Yeah, I mean, do people just like sing to you like while you're just walking the streets?
Yeah, pretty much break out into song.
Yeah. So
he is a jerk, a really big jerk. Oh,
exactly.
Those are great.
Yeah,
great influences. And
yeah, so I got into that, and then how I got into Yes specifically, I didn't realize it was Yes because when I was a kid growing up in the 80s, I loved Owner of a Lonely Heart. When that came out on the radio, I was like, oh my god, it was so good. Owner of a Lonely Heart was awesome. I was a huge Asia fan. Heat of the Moment, Only Time Will Tell was probably my favorite that I heard on the radio.
Oh really? Interesting.
Yeah, and so I loved all that. But I had no idea like the connection, that they were connected. I didn't know anything about prog rock. And then so basically I was looking for other music. So I got into like all sorts of music. I got into classic rock. I got into new agey stuff. I was into like Enigma, and then I got into like that's like more modern new agey. But I got into Guitarro.
Yes.
Nice.
Andreas Vollenweider, like that kind of stuff. It's just I don't know how like my uncle was really into Andreas Vollenweider, so I borrowed some CDs, and I was like, wow, this is really cool, real cool music, and totally different vibes. I got into like soundtracks. I was into movie soundtracks, Braveheart, Titanic. Like I love that kind of all that stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, so I had a Guitarro album, and it had John Anderson on it.
Yeah, that was Dream, correct?
Yeah, Lady.
I love
Lady
that album.
Oh, and a lady I dream. Da, 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 da.
Yeah, I love the song Island of Life on there.
Island of Life is great. Yeah, there's such great songs. And I was like, John Anderson. I was like, oh, this is cool. Like I thought like John Anderson was like a country guy, but doesn't really sound like country to me. But I kind of got
NASCAR on the side.
That was the other John Anderson, the John Anderson. I still don't even know like what songs he does. I'm not even sure. But yeah, so I got into that, and then I signed up for BNG Music Service. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got into that, and I saw they had a sale. It was Yes Years, the 4 CD box set.
Yeah, I remember when that came out.
And it said John Anderson, and I was like, oh shit, this is John, because they sent me a brochure, and I was like, oh shit, I love his voice. Like his stuff on Guitarro is amazing. He's got a whole band. What? So I ordered it. It was like 75% off, so I got it for like $15 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Plus shipping. I couldn't. And first song, Something's Coming. West Side Story, one of my favorite musicals. I was like, what? Something's coming. Like, what is this? Like, and I was like blown away from the get-go. I was like blown away. I was like, oh my God. And I just kept on listening to track after track after track. And very quickly, Yes became my favorite band. So that's the story, the long story, how I became into Yes, the backwards way.
That's great.
And then I just got all their CDs, and then I just became obsessed.
That's great. We forgot to mention something at the outset, because a lot of people may not know this, that folks, Adam is the keyboardist and the lead vocalist of Lobate Scarp. So that begs a question. Okay, that's hard to do. What 1 to 3 keyboardists are your biggest influences on that instrument? And what vocalists are your biggest influences? I have a voice in my head. I hate to make comparisons.
Oh, sure.
I don't want to compare, and then someone says, oh yeah, I hate that guy. You know what I mean? So tell us first.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Because it's weird because, like my favorite band is Yes. Obviously, that's why I'm here. And I love prog rock. I mean, like my second favorite band is probably King Crimson, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I love Pink Floyd, of course. But as far as like, musically, like what I do, I'm like my favorite keyboardist of all time, I would say is probably Rick Wakeman. I'm no Rick Wakeman. I can't, I'm classically trained. I took piano by the time I was 5 until I was 10. I was really good like the first couple of years, and then I just didn't want to be told like what to play, and I just kind of, my parents didn't push it too much. I wish they did, because I could have been a better, piano player right now. But I got back into it in high school and in college. So as far as like piano, I mean, I like pretty much everything. I'm a big Billy Joel fan. I like Elton John. I like the way, his chord progressions are amazing. Sorry, I don't think I play like anybody in particularly, but I kind of just, I kind of just, I guess I'm just influenced, subconsciously from all these people that I like. As far as vocally, let's see. Freddie Mercury is probably one of my favorite vocalists. I love John Anderson, of course. Let's see. Billy Joel's great. And he's like, let's see who else. George Michael. A lot of 80s stuff. I love Danny Elfman as a vocalist. Stuff. I love Oingo Boingo. I'm a big fan.
An amazing composer. I actually went to school with Karen Bartek, who was the sister of the guitarist.
Right. Steve Bartek. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah. I remember when she was telling me, because I was in a band at the time, and she was telling me, my brother's a guitar player in a band, and I'm like, what's the name? Oingo Boingo. I'm like, okay. And it was a year later, poof, there they were. It was really cool. And then, of course, the composer work, the film score work that Danny Elfman went on to do is just legendary. I mean, what a composer.
Yeah, Nightmare Before Christmas is my favorite Christmas movie and my favorite Halloween movie.
Oh, yeah. So good. Yeah, I got into, I love Danny Elfman as a composer. Probably I'd say Edward Scissorhands is probably my favorite score. Batman is great, of course, too. Batman Returns. I like Batman Returns. I think I have that on cassette tape somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
But yeah, and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. His themes are just just epic, Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And junior high, going back to like my vocal influences, junior high, I was into more like metal, rock. I loved Metallica. I got into Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden's my very first live performance. As far
what
as
year?
seeing a live show. It was Anthrax opening up for Iron Maiden. It was 92.
What tour was that?
It was the No Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah. I go back as far as with Iron Maiden when Clive Burr and Paul Di'Anno were still with them.
Okay.
Yeah. Way back before they headlined. They opened for UFO, if I remember right. Or the UFO, and then another time the Scorpions, and then they started headlining when they got Bruce and Nico. And Nico's been on my show quite a few times on drums.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that would have been
great band.
A good show. I was into Guns N' Roses a lot. Use Your Illusion. Guns N' Roses, they're kind of like what. All right, so Guns N' Roses, Faith No More, big into those guys in the early 90s. And those guys, I would say, really influenced my songwriting, as far as long form songs. Like you Faith No More, you have, like the zombie, what is it called? Zombie Baby.
Yeah.
And the other one, Real Thing, like that. Those are 10-minute songs. Guns N' Roses had Coma and Use Your Illusion and Estranged. Those are November Rain, of course, like one of the best like guitar solos.
Yeah.
So all that stuff that really like piqued my interest. I'm like, this is amazing. You could write long songs and it's like a piece of music. It's kind of cool. So Faith No More, I could say I'm influenced by Michael Patton's voice as well as a little bit of Axl Rose,
Very cool. And are the influences pretty shared amongst the band as far as the top ones that are listed, like Genesis, Yes, Rush, etc.?
I think so. So my bass player, Andy, his favorite band is Rush. Rush is definitely in my top 5. My original guitarist from the first album, White Binder, I think he was really into Yngwie Malmsteen and Dream Theater. So he loves John Petrucci, and he's really into Pink Floyd as well. So he was really into Gilmour.
Yeah.
And then Peter Matuchniak, my current guitarist, he's into old school Genesis, Steve Hackett. In fact, he's in a Steve Hackett tribute band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they haven't played for a while, but I know they're called the Steps.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Very cool. Steve, let's talk with Adam about some of the pieces of music. But first, let's actually cite a couple things just so people know. The first album, Time and Space, was in Prog top 13 albums of 2013. That's a neat numerization that worked out there.
Yeah.
Instrumental mix version came out May 1st of 2020. July 2016, Beautiful Light released as a single in September 2019, saw the release of the EP Spirals and Portals. And coming up this year, everything stays on track and works out. Right? In April of 22, Sarasota, Florida, the Roz Fest. Are you excited about that?
Very excited. Very, very excited. Yeah, this is pretty crazy. Definitely our biggest show to date. Our only show out of California, so we'd never go anywhere. So it'll be pretty cool to get out of the state and see new audience, new people, and and especially it's Prog people. It's our kind of people.
Yeah, Steve and I have listened to a bunch of tracks. Steve, do you have a favorite?
I think the epic, which is the title track, Time and Space, is my favorite. Cool. As prog rock fans, we tend to get drawn to the epics. Like if we see the length, we're like, oh, this has gotta be great. And it was like, through that entire album, I heard, I could hear bits of Dream Theater, one of the influences you mentioned. And the song Beginning of Us starts off sounding very Pink Floyd influenced to me, but then becomes its own thing, like takes a turn. And like just throughout, it has like this very it feels to me like there's also bits of like prog metal in it, and it sounds very spacey, which hence the title. Like it just fits so well. And what struck me about like the first few songs on Time and Space is after I would be finished listening to each one, I would think, oh yeah, that was a great 10-minute song. Then I would look at the runtime and I'd be like, oh wait, that was only 4 minutes, only 6 minutes. Wow, there's like a lot packed into these.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think track 2, I think Jacob's Ladder is about maybe like 4.5 minutes, something like that. And it's probably our most complicated song. It's probably even more complicated than Time and Space. It took us a while to learn just because there's so many changes in such a short amount of time. Yeah. So that one was a doozy to learn like for a live show.
I agree with everything Steve said. I think my favorite song so far of everything I've heard from you guys is Save My Soul. And one of the reasons why, again, I hate to make comparisons, but I'm going to, if that's okay. Sure. It reminds me, and this isn't why I like it because of the diversity within that song. It just, you're going down this lane and then there's this hard fork in the road for a bit. And it reminds me of a song on Haken's album Vector, where there's a couple points where it just totally gets out of that suit and puts on a whole different costume for a bit and then goes back and it totally works. I really love those types.
Love Haken. Haken is great. Yeah, they're probably one of my favorite newer bands that have come.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think they're probably my favorite, like what I would call prog metal, if you will. And I found that album by accident, fell in love with them, and then just blew through their whole catalog, and then finally found a video from Vector and saw that Ray Hearn was only playing like a 5-piece kit, and it really blew me away as a drummer because I thought he was playing some huge kit and everything. It was really
it's not the size, it's what you do with it that counts.
That's what I keep telling my wife.
Oh geez.
But yeah, you're right. It's all how you use it and what the sounds are and everything. And Ray's just an awesome drummer. But yeah, that's my favorite song. I really like that. I'm really eager to hear your entire new album. And on that note, no pun intended, folks, sit back for a moment. We're going to play you a couple rough mix / unmixed samples from the new album with John and Billy from Yes guesting on vocals. This is You Have It All. And I got to tell you, when I first heard this, Adam, if you didn't say so, it wouldn't have occurred to me that this wasn't like the final mix. It sounds really cool the way it is. Yeah, it could even be an alternate release maybe further on down the road with a collection of other stuff. Who knows? But check this out.
Hey there, the universe is for you. It loves you, and it always will. It always will. Take care. The universe is for you. It loves you, and it always will. It always will.
You have it all. 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 You have it all.
Steve, thoughts on those morsels?
Yeah, their voices sound really good, and I gotta tell you, when I first saw the news a few months ago that they're guesting on a song on this album, back then I didn't know Lobate Scarp's material that well, so I thought, okay, they're probably gonna be on like some 5-minute song, and it turns out it's on a much longer song. I'm just looking at the length of the track.
14:30.
Yeah, 14 and a half minutes. Yeah. So yeah, I'm like very curious to see how that all fits in context with the rest of that piece, what the final like full version ends up being.
Or maybe that's all they do on it.
Yeah, there's so basically I'm trying to think. Yeah, like You Have It All is about, I think it's basically like a 3-part song, and then the 4th part returns. It's like a coda of the first part. And so I think I have so on the first track, it's me on the verses, and then Billy sings the entirety of the first chorus. I don't think you had that on your clip, but it's pretty good. And it sounds great. And originally I wasn't planning to have Billy to sing that chorus, but as we were making it, I was like, you know what, I should just have him just sing that whole chorus, because I think that'd be so cool.
That's great.
And then John appears about like 6 minutes in when we get to the part 2. And he has that nice kind of serene. I kind of always had him in mind when I wrote that part, and then they kind of slowly come in, they start to harmonize, and then at the end it's all of us singing like multiple parts.
Yeah. What I like about it a lot, just from that little sampler, is that it reminds me of, and hopefully other people will experience this the same way, that Billy sounds like Billy Sherwood. And John Davison sounds like John Davison. They sound like themselves. And obviously in Yes, Billy singing a lot of Chris Squire parts, John singing a lot of John Anderson parts. And it's we had a little bit of that on The Quest and with John on Heaven and Earth, but you really hear them sound like themselves, which is great.
They sound so great together too. That's the one thing I was like, I really like, if I get one, I really hope I could get the other, because it would just be wonderful to have.
Exactly.
And I was lucky, John, he gave me his stuff remotely. I sent him the tracks and then he recorded it remotely. And I was lucky. The stuff that he gave me like right away was great. I asked him one more time just to go through it because he only gave me like one take. And my producer, he's like such a perfectionist, and he was like, I need just a couple more takes because I want to like kind of choose like the best stuff, like the best words and the best whatever, and then or maybe he wants to double it. So if I could get more takes, and so John was totally cool to send me some more stuff. And then Billy, I was totally lucky. Billy was actually able to come into the studio because he's a local guy.
Yeah.
And he was like, because I was like, you should just, record remotely. And he's like, no, I'd rather just come in and that way we could go in and out and just do it. And he was great. And he added some even more harmonies that I didn't even write, and he added just to it, and it just made it grow like exponentially. It was awesome. Yeah. Billy and he's such a great guy. One of the nicest guys I've met.
Yeah. Not easy to work with, but a really nice guy.
No, he's super easy to work with.
Yeah, I met Billy. I've known Alan White since 1989. And I remember when they were going through the weirdness before Union, he said, yeah, we're starting this new thing. And have you ever heard of World Trade? And I said, no. And he showed me the album, pointed at Billy. He said, this guy's working with us. And all this stuff, and then everything transpired and unfolded the way it does. But he introduced me to Billy on the Open Your Eyes tour when I saw them in San Diego, and we became friends and have stayed in touch ever since. And I think what's neat about Billy Sherwood is if you need to call on someone with a very well-rounded experience, he's worn more hats with Yes than anybody else. He's played guitar, he's played bass, he's sung background, he's sung lead, he's engineered, he's produced, he's
done keyboards.
Keyboards he wrote, like even before, like he wrote some stuff on Union. My very first Yes live experience was the Talk Tour in '94. And I didn't know, but in the side, that's Billy Sherwood he'd playing additional keyboards, additional guitar. He's like kind of like backstage. I didn't know who that guy was in the corner, but I was like, oh shit, that's Billy Sherwood.
It was kind of weird, but in hindsight, like he's been there. That's such a long time now.
And just the stuff with Open Your Eyes and The Ladder is actually probably one of my favorite
me too
Yes albums. And when we went to make Time and Space, my producer and I, Stephen Levitt, we were listening to The Ladder like so much because we wanted to kind of capture that energy for our album. And so there's might be a little influences there, but as far as like the energy, I think we really captured that kind of energy.
It's very live. When you listen to The House of Yes and you listen to the studio tracks, often there's two sort of different versions that are sometimes quite different, or that energy level is more amplified on the live version. With those two, you don't really get that because it was already there on the studio album, and all they need to do is emulate that, and it works perfectly live. I love that album. It's really good.
So good.
Yeah. So what it is up with touring and whatnot? Are you guys going to go out on tour? What are you, if you don't mind me asking, what are you going to do with those vocal parts on You Have It All if you play that live? How can you not play the 14.5-minute epic, darn it?
Yeah. Well, we've played that song before live. Our last show was January of 2020. We opened up for Iz came to town. I don't know, you guys familiar with IZZ?
I'm not. No,
they're really good. You should look them up. They have a lot of like old school Genesis inspiration influences. They're really cool. They're from New York, and I kind of kept in touch with them for a while. And actually, Peter, my guitarist, he knows them really well. And so they were coming to town, and they asked us to open for them, and that was awesome. And we had a good time. It was like in this small theater in Santa Monica, and we had a great show. It was fun, and we played You Have It All, So it was just me and Andy, my bassist. Like, he was doing the background vocals for that one. If we do it again, I don't know, we might have to have some like recorded tracks or something. I might have to ask John and Billy if it's cool to use their voices. I don't know, it's like a background track or something. But
yeah, because now it's unfolded since then.
Yes, now that the live albums, the live one's going to come out. I mean, the studio one's going to come out. We kind of have to like up our live game a bit, but I actually kind of think it's, the live thing and the album thing, it's a different monster, and I think you could play a show live and almost like a different version of the song live, than to have the album version. Because on the album, we recorded a string quartet the other day for You Have It All. So I mean, it's going to be big, so that's going to be tough to do all that live. But that's the beauty of the studio. You could just add a bunch of people in there and then just make whatever sounds you want. But yeah, then when you go live, hopefully you don't disappoint. Hopefully keep the energy up, but just have a different version of that song, and maybe have someone say, where's the orchestra, or where's that rhythm guitar part that, because I only have one guitarist, I have Peter, he can't play rhythm and lead at the same time in the studio. You could do that. There's things, we have to play all the main parts, all the main melodies, all the main hooks.
Yeah.
But, all that extra part, hopefully, it's not important to people and they won't miss those kind of things.
Yeah, bands have been doing that forever, from Zeppelin to Deep Purple to Yes to Genesis, all Gentle Giant, all of them. So I don't think people have, for the most part, unrealistic expectations. Plus, there's just a whole different, aside from the expectation, they're in that experience.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're picking it apart quite that way for the most part.
Exactly.
And
that way you can say, hey, if you like this live version, go buy the CD. It's a whole different version with 20
absolutely.
more musicians. Check it
You know
out.
what? my whole life, with the exception of Haken and Lobate Scarp, my first experience with every band I've ever gotten into has been purchasing a live album first, because I wanted to experience exactly that without all the other stuff. And in fact, Yes songs and Close to the Edge I bought at the same time. And I listened to Yes songs over and over and over first, to the point to where when I put on Close to the Edge and heard the studio version of that, I was like, what is this? It was like so different, with Bill's drumming and the whole production versus Alan's drumming, and that it's a whole different composition almost. And I love that. But when I think of all these bands I've ever, and Zeppelin is an exception because I got into them when I was 6, when their first album came out. Oops, I gave something there away. So I think, people will definitely be cool with it. I'm sure guys will kill it. And on the topic of members and people adding things, you've got a nice list of guest members. And I'm actually friends with Jimmy Keegan, the guest drummer.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Jimmy's a great guy. Did great work in Spock's Beard. Then you got Eric Moore, who's a monster on the drums.
Oh my God.
I'm going to kind of go through the list here for people, because I'm sure there's other people here that other folks have heard of. Andrea Witt on viola and pedal steel. You got Rachel Grace also on violin. We mentioned Eric, Jimmy, Billy Sherwood, John Davison, of course. Rio Okamoto on B3 synths and jazz piano.
Yeah.
Rich Mauser on guitar, 12-string acoustic guitar, mandolin, shaker. And
Rich is our co-producer as well as our mixer, but he also he's not very well known that he could play guitar like a beast.
Really?
So he'll add some stuff. If he hears something that's kind of missing and he wants to make something more interesting, he's like, hey, what do you think of this? And then it's like, oh shit, that's awesome.
That's great. Michael Bernard on synth and drums programming. Got Stephen Levitt, producer on additional pianos and B3 Moog. Synth programming, maracas, tambourine, glockenspiel, vocals, kazoo, paper and comb, spoons, castanets, and what's that? A blade of grass through the hands.
Later, we should do that. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Blade of grass.
Yeah, you've also got a single coming up titled Our Test Tube Universe, and we'll play a bit of it for people to hear.
Cool.
Yeah,
But
let's drop some of that in right now. Actually.
Oh, sure.
yeah.
Go for it.
A small flicker in the glass. Precise instruments measuring more mass. He overlooks the misty flask. The meter rises to the max, then shatters. How do we see a world that's not our own? Maybe if you get to see it shown. How do we let a God know that we're here? Why do we think that our God really cares?
So Steve, what was your first impression of that?
I listened to it while I was probably working on some stuff on my laptop, and because Adam, you sent it to me, and then I started playing it, and I just started like bobbing my head, moving like this, like right away.
Awesome.
It's like recently, like last night actually, I started going through. Like I just started listening to Buckethead's discography. He's made like over 300 albums apparently.
Oh, really?
And it gave me like a similar reaction. Like the style is so different. It's just like Buckethead stuff is super weird, but it gave me that same reaction of like just bobbing my head and like, all this other stuff. And this new song that you sent me made me feel that same way, even though it's a different style. It feels a little bit, and I don't know if this was one of those other influences, but it feels a bit Zeppelin-esque, and like it's just such an earworm. Like it sticks with you. I'm still like imagining it right now. Like it just
Awesome.
sticks with you. So you
Cool.
chose a
Not
good
very many
track for a
people have
single.
heard it yet, so this is great. Feedback. Because I think very limited people have heard it, and it hasn't been released yet officially. I think next week, or maybe by the time you air this, it'll be released. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
We're figuring it out.
that's cool. Not to detour too much, but Steve, what the fuck is Bucketheads? I've never 300 albums. What?
He's the guy from Guns N' Roses that replaced the other guy, right? He had a bucket on his head.
He definitely has a bucket on his head. So I'm not very familiar with what he's done and other stuff, but my introduction to him was years ago when I was a teenager. I found out that like in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was gonna be this Texas Chainsaw Massacre fan film by the director's son called All American Massacre, and the trailer had some really cool music, and it was by Buckethead. He was gonna play Leatherface. That fan film never came out, but just, I stayed aware of Buckethead for a really long time, but didn't actually get around to listening to his stuff until like yesterday, pretty much.
How interesting. I never heard of this.
I don't know really much about his albums. I just know that he joined Guns N' Roses for a little bit.
On what instrument?
I think guitar, right? Or after Slash left for a little while.
Yeah, I think so.
So instead of the top hat, he had a bucket?
Yeah, with holes maybe so he could see, or maybe he couldn't see. I don't even know.
So Adam, I hear so many things in your guys' music, and again, not to make comparisons, but just to give people some sort of preview and personal context from my ear. I hear some Kansas here and there.
Yeah.
Even in your voice too. I hear old Steve Walsh in your voice
Cool.
a bit, not necessarily the higher register, but his more mid-range voice. You sound a lot like Steve Walsh, actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he's got a great voice, so that's awesome to hear. I've never heard that before, so appreciate that. That's cool.
And recently,
I wish I could sing as high, like in that stratosphere. Oh my god, man, that's so good.
in my band, back in my day, when I was referring to that band, we tore up the Sunset Strip for like 4 or 5 years. My cousin played Hammond B3 some synths, and he did sound like Steve Walsh. He had that.
Okay, cool.
He was a cross between Steve Walsh and Ian Gillan. He could get up there. He was
on
really
the
good.
on our Trusted Universe. That's Ryo Okamoto on the B3s.
Yeah, it sounds
And then
great.
it's Jimmy on the drums.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds really, really good. So, folks, no matter how diverse your musical tastes are or influences, if you're whether you're a fan or a musician, there's really something for everybody on this album without it sounding like someone threw a bunch of marbles up in the air and they just scattered. It doesn't sound like
Yeah,
that.
right,
There's
exactly.
still continuity, which is great.
There's a
So we
time
don't-
and place for all that. I mean, I kind of like that kind of weird stuff as well, avant-garde and
yeah,
Brian Eno, like airplane sounds, all sorts of weird stuff. So King Crimson could kind of get out there at points, and I kind of like that stuff. But I wanted to keep Lobate Scarp a little more grounded.
yeah. What else is ahead other than the Rozfest?
That's pretty much right now where we're going to, and after Rozfest, we'll see what happens. Of course, we got the album that's coming out. The official release date of the album is April 1st.
Is that really coming out April 1st?
That's the goal. That's the plan. We're a little behind because there's a lot of missing. There's a lot of pieces that we got to kind of fit together. We were playing. We heard this string quartet yesterday. Oh God, was that yesterday? Oh my God. I don't know if you could tell I'm so tired. Like, this has been like an epic week. We've been trying to like finish up the single. We've been trying to like mix all the stuff.
No, you're fine. And the reason I question that isn't because I didn't think you guys had your shit together, but it is April Fool's Day.
I mean, we barely have our shit together.
But that gives you a
We're
great
working on it.
out. If for some reason it's not ready, it's April Fool's is coming out May 8th.
Yeah, no, we're trying not to fool anybody. And we're really trying to get it out. Like originally our goal was to get it out on 2/2/22 because we figured album 2 on 2/2/22 would be good. But that led into 2/22/22 because we needed an extra 20 days because there's just so much stuff happening, and it's like, and we keep on adding more things, and every time you add something you got to edit it and you got to place it and you got to mix it, so it's just taking much longer than we originally anticipated. Ideally, so we have a Indiegogo campaign happening. You could pre-order the album. And anybody who pre-orders the album on our Indiegogo, you can go to gotprog.com to go to our Indiegogo campaign. Ideally, everyone's going to get the whole album digitally by 2/22/22. That's if we get all our shit completely together. We're really hoping we could do that, and that'll give us an extra month to give it over to reviewers and radio stations, maybe publications, so they can write about us and then just build more interest. So by the time April 1st happens, we'll get a lot of people interested in getting it.
That's great. And we'll put the website and everything in the posts everywhere where we're putting this.
Cool.
Yeah.
We've got our CD release party. Our CD release show is going to be over here at Molly Malone's Sunday, March 27th, I believe the date is.
Oh, great.
So that's our album release show. So hopefully we'll have an album definitely by then. And then a week after that, April 7th, April 9th, Saturday, we're playing at Alva's showroom down in San Pedro.
What's the name of it?
It's called Alvas, Alvas. It's a neat little showroom. It's like a next door to a music store, and they have this cool showroom. Sits about 100 people.
Nice.
It's a nice little theater. You could sit down and enjoy like intimate music, basically. Yeah, so that's going to be our Rozfest set. We're going to practice our set over there, and then a week later we do Rozfest Easter weekend.
That's great.
So,
awesome.
So we're going to try to just build it up and try to get used to playing live, and and then after Rozfest, hopefully we could do. I'd love to do more like Prog festival shows, Cruise to the Edge, stuff like that. It would be really cool, and a tour because we haven't toured. I'd like to go overseas eventually once this Omicron thing gets in control, because a lot of our fans are in Germany and Switzerland and England, and a lot of Europeans like Prague. So I'd love to get out there and do some shows.
That's great.
It's great to have an international audience. That really says something.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Not
This
just
is great.
the Yes connection, but also just, on your guys' own behalf with your own, what you've got going. You're carving out that hopefully it's going to be a very deep, long path. Got some great music, and I'm sure it's just going to unfold more and more and more over the years. It's really exciting, especially for a senior like me who's really into prog, to see new prog coming out, in recent years. In 2022, who knew? Prog,
Yeah, cool.
I think it's great. It really is.
Oh,
Thanks for keeping the genre alive.
Absolutely, Dan. Thank you so much. Steven, thank you guys so much for having me. This is great. I don't get to do this very often, so this is really cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
even
like
though we have it in the post, give out your website, please, Adam.
Okay, yeah. So our band is Lobate Scarp, and website is lobatescarp.com. So that's LOBATE, Lobate, and then SCARP, Scarp, lobatescarp.com. Or you could go to gotprog.com. It's like got milk, gotprog.com, and that'll take you to the Indiegogo site, so you could check out more about our album and the making of our album. And
that's great.
we have some
And
videos
folks,
up
if
there.
you dare to see the visual version of these shows, you could follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Yesshift, or Steve, they could just hear audio, right?
Yeah, you can see all the audio platforms we're on over at anchor.fm/Yesshift. Also, very quickly, want to give special shout outs to listeners Carl Coppage and Brian Harris. They recently donated to our podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, if you want to contribute to that, you can just go to anchor.fm/Yesshift and click on the support button and donate what you want. And yeah, we'll just keep on churning out episodes because we love making these, and we're glad that people enjoy listening to these, and we're glad to have conversations with all these people into prog and in prog.
Yeah, and this is, we didn't mention this in the beginning, this is episode 30, not counting the Yesshift news desk reports. Those are totally separate. We've done maybe 9 of those.
Yeah, we have a bunch of those.
Yeah, but this is episode 30, which is really cool. And you can email us suggestions, questions, love mail, hate mail, whatever you want, at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com, and the dot is lowercase. There we go. Thanks everybody for joining us. Stay tuned for more fun and dig into Lobate Scarp for some new brands. Freshly unwrapped, soon to be unwrapped prog. Thanks everybody.
Thank you guys.